UK.
Search and rescue efforts are underway in Rafah after Israeli airstrikes on a refugee camp. Officials in Gaza say 45 people have been killed, many of them women and children. Israeli defense forces say they targeted and killed 2 senior Hamas figures in what they're calling a precise airstrike. The IDF says it will review the killings of civilians. The strike comes amid increased international pressure on Israel to halt its offensive in the region. CTV's Colton Prale is tracking this from Ottawa. He joins me now with more. So, Colton, where are we today after a weekend that saw strikes on both sides, with Hamas sending rockets into Tel Aviv and then Israel responding by that assault on the camp?
Marcia, really, it's been a day of international outcry over this attack in Rafah, which did come, as you mentioned, after that incident where we saw missiles fired into Tel Aviv for the first time in almost 4 months. And Israel's responding, saying that attack, that missiles fired from Rafah to Tel Aviv, highlights the need to continue their assault in Rafah. It highlights the need for strikes like this in light of the ICJ ruling on Friday, ordering them to halt their attacks. They say until Hamas is completely dismantled, that they can't give up this assault. But it's not being received well by international allies or by other countries across the world. We've seen France come out today, Macron saying that he was outraged by this attack, asking them specifically to follow the ICJ ruling on Friday. We've seen condemnation from Turkey, from Egypt as well. Even the EU chief of foreign policy has come out and spoken out, not only just against this, but also against the categorization of the ICC, Karim Khan, as anti-Semitic in their search for arrest warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. There has been significant international reaction to this strike, specifically because it is in an area that the Palestinian Red Crescent said was designated for displaced people. It is an area where the IDF had previously told those living in Rafah to head towards just a few days ago prior to this assault. And so there is immense international concern around this attack. There's also concern from some countries, Qatar specifically, that this strike could hamper negotiations, which are supposed to begin tomorrow. But that's now in the balance as well. Those were already relatively tenuous. And the response here is one of really true international concern.
Right. And we're just looking at pictures of the fire that was ignited by that strike. So, Colton, thank you very much for that update. We'll check in with you again throughout the morning.
Peace! Ukrainian ATACMS strike Russian space radar station in Alushta, Crimea. An Ukrainian attack on annexed Crimea using U.S.-supplied missiles is reported to have struck a space radar station used by occupying Russian forces. The local Crimean Wind telegram channel reported on Friday that Kiev's forces attacked military installations in Crimea on Thursday evening. At least 6 ATACMS ballistic missiles hit a communications center used by the Russian army that houses a radio antenna of a space observation station, it said. Russia's defense ministry said it had halted Ukraine's attempts to attack the region using ATACMS. Air defense systems destroyed 3 ATACMS operational tactical missiles over the territory of the Republic of Crimea, it said in a statement. The defense ministry also said its forces destroyed naval drones belonging to Ukraine that were headed toward the Black Sea Peninsula. In the Black Sea, unmanned boats of the Ukrainian Navy were discovered heading toward the Crimean Peninsula. 3 unmanned boats were destroyed, it said. Ukraine hasn't commented on the reported attacks. Footage of the reported attack was shared on social media on Thursday night. ATACMS in flight, heading to the illegal occupiers on Crimea a little earlier. Tim White, journalist and documentary maker, wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter. Russia says missile strikes in Alushta hit an empty commercial property, which is one of the most ridiculous statements of the war. Although maybe they meant it's now empty of life, he wrote. More Ukrainian ATACMS strikes on Russian targets in Crimea. It's becoming a nightly occurrence now, said Jimmy Rustin, a Kiev-based foreign policy and security analyst.
Представители стран НАТО, особенно в Европе, особенно в малых странах, они должны вообще отдавать себе отчет, с чем они играют. Они должны помнить о том, что это, как правило, государство с небольшой территорией и с очень плотным населением. И этот фактор, который они должны иметь в виду, прежде чем говорить о нанесении ударов вглубь российской территории. Представители стран НАТО, особенно в Европе, особенно в малых странах, они должны вообще отдавать себе отчет, с чем они играют. Они должны помнить о том, что это, как правило, государство с небольшой территорией и с очень плотным населением. И этот фактор, который они должны иметь в виду, прежде чем говорить о нанесении ударов вглубь российской территории. Ну и вообще эта постоянная эскалация может привести к серьезным последствиям.
U.S. President Joe Biden has given Ukraine the go-ahead to use some U.S. weapons to strike inside Russia. It marks a significant reversal in policy by Washington, which has restricted the use of its weapons to avoid a direct confrontation with Moscow. I want to take this story now to our Washington bureau chief, Ines Pohl. She's been following this developing story for us. Ines, tell us more about what we've been hearing from the White House.
So several media reports indicate that President Joe Biden has authorized Ukraine to use American weaponry to defend Kharkiv by striking inside Russia. According to these reports, Brent, U.S. officials, who actually wish to remain anonymous, have confirmed this information. We haven't heard anything from the White House at this time. And I think it's also important to note that the U.S. policy urging Ukraine not to use American-provided long-range missiles and other munitions to offensive strikes inside Russia actually remains unchanged.
Yeah, that's an important point to make. Long-range weaponry, nothing has changed there. So what could this mean then for the war in Ukraine, considering that Russia has made inroads in the last several months?
Right, Moscow has made significant advances in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region and also the northeastern Kharkiv region. Ukraine, of course, hopes that by now being allowed to target Russian military installation along the Russian-Ukrainian border, they can better repel Russia's advances and protect these regions. However, President Biden has been cautious in his approach because he, of course, is concerned that such actions could escalate the situation and potentially lead to a global conflict. You know, I had recently the opportunity to speak with Ukrainian lawmakers here in D.C., and they expressed their frustration with the delayed response from the West, saying that they believe that if they had received the military support they requested earlier, the war would have already come to an end.
Wow, that's quite a statement to make there. DW's Ines Pohl in Washington with the latest on this news that the U.S. president has said yes to using some U.S. weapons around the Kharkiv region into Russia in the war. Ines, thank you.